you've invested so much time, energy, and you believed so much. I was so obsessed with like doing this real estate thing, but that voice in my head was so loud at the time that I was just like, well, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I need to wait. Maybe I don't have what it takes. And so,
Imagine having direct access to someone who's navigated life's toughest terrains and come out stronger. Someone who's been there, done that, and can guide you with empathy, experience, and honesty. This isn't just advice, it's a lifeline, a strategy session, a chance to learn from my journey so you can accelerate yours. Without the ability to be self-aware and introspective, the ability for you to get to where you want to go, nearly impossible. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the David Guttman podcast. I have a guest today that I'm really excited about. So, Cody Sperber, CEO, founder of Clever Investor,
mm-hmm.
real estate investing and mentorship education and software.
Yep.
Well over 1,000 deals done.
Probably closer to 3,000 at this point.
Okay, wow, okay.
Yeah.
And hundreds of millions of dollars in total, right?
Mm-hmm.
And an ex-Navy guy.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir. So fascinating background. And I thought, again, the goal of my podcast is to talk to people that are taking, the road a little bit less traveled in terms of their career path and their success, but that have found a path to being more well-rounded individuals, not just successfully financially, though that's the goal for many people. I think people often lose sight of the fact that, Steve Jobs, you can have all the money in the world. If you don't have your health, it doesn't mean jack shit, right? So you don't have the right relationships, you don't have the right, you're not in the right place mentally, kind of all of the money in the world won't matter much at all. So maybe start a little bit with, kind of your background and, what did your folks do? Were they entrepreneurs or?
Yeah, no, later in life, yeah. Yeah, my dad very early on, my parents grew up in back east in like West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania kind of area, a lot of family back then. They're very poor, very poor. I think we're related to the Hatfields and McCoys. That's like kind of like we're like a little Appalachian inbred type, background. And it just my dad lost his dad when he was 13 years old, so he had to step up very early and become the man of the household. My dad's dad was Jewish. My dad's mom was not Jewish, so the whole
We have
Jewish
that in
side of
common.
the whole Jewish side of the family disconnected as soon as my dad's dad died. Cut them off. They lost. I mean, they owned My dad's dad owned department stores and other clothing stores and stuff like that, and they lost everything. And so it was rough for them for a little while. My mom grew up in trailer parks, very, very poor. And so, no, they didn't have a lot of money, but my dad tried to start a business very early. It crushed him. He lost everything, and he had fear from that point forward. And he was more of an entrepreneur. He was always like vice president or president of a company. He fell into the schooling business and went kind of jumped from job to job to job. His problem is he always wanted to be the king, but he always pissed off the king. He served his purpose on the ride up, but once he overstepped his boundaries, he got fired. So by the time I was probably 10 or 12 years old, we had moved about 10 or 12 times. So I was moving all the time because my dad kept getting fired every year and a half. And so I lived a bunch of different states, always trying to make new friends. The next thing you know, it's like pack your stuff, we're out of here. But we always kind of they moved to Arizona. I moved to I grew up here pretty much since 5 weeks old. So every time we moved to Texas, and then a year and a half later back here. Colorado, a year and a half later. California, a year and a half later back here. And so, I think that's part of my childhood that turned me into a better entrepreneur, because I was always fighting for significance, fighting for attention, trying to, create a friend base and then losing it. And so in at 16 years old, my dad started putting pressure on me, like, what are you going to do with your life? And my dad was in the Navy. And so as soon as I graduated high school, I decided that I was going to go into the Navy and mirror what he was doing. And so next thing you know, I'm in San Diego. I did 4 years as a quartermaster. And I knew the Navy wasn't for me pretty early on. It was really hard. I'm one of those guys that fights back.
Right.
I like to be in control. I don't like to be told what to do.
Mm.
And so it was really challenging for me, but it was one of the greatest things that I ever did. I got to travel a lot. I grew up a lot. I learned discipline. I started caring for myself, started having more confidence. And it taught me a lot about systems and processes. They have a system for everything in the military. So when I got out, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. My dad went back to my consultant, my dad, and I said, "What do you think I should do with my life?" And he said, "Well, I always wish that I got a degree in finance. It's the language of business." And I'm like, "Dad, I'm horrible at math." And he's like, "Just try it, push yourself." And so I enrolled in ASU on the MGI Bill, and I'm going to college at ASU. And I got really freaking lucky. David, I got so lucky. A friend of mine named Jeremy that I used to party with, and probably like 3 months earlier, we went out and we got pretty drunk, and he's puking behind the dumpsters in Scottsdale. And now 3 months later, he says, "Do you want to go to lunch? I want to talk to you." And he pulls up in a brand new Mercedes, beautiful car. And I said, "How'd you get the car?" And he said, "I flipped a house and I made $80,000. I said, "You're full of shit. There's no way you flipped a house. How did you buy a house? I don't even understand." He said, "Well, I did it no money down." I said, "What do you mean no money down? Like you could buy a house with no money into the deal?" And he goes, "Yeah, people are doing it all over. A mortgage guy taught me how to do it. It took me a few months, but I was able to do this deal and I made 80 grand. I have a second one that I'm about to do." And I said, "You're full of shit. Show me." And he literally pulled out a napkin and penciled out on a napkin at lunch this concept of wholesaling. And I had never heard of it before. But essentially what he was doing, and now it's more common because, you got to go back 22 plus years. It's like the we buy ugly houses guys, right? It's like, why are they buying these ugly houses and what are they doing with them? Well, what they're doing with them is they're flipping them to cash buyers that are looking for deals. And so what a wholesaler does is they put out advertising and they look for a distressed seller or a distressed property, somebody very motivated. It can't be a non-motivated person. A non-motivated person's going to list with the real estate agent,
Yeah.
get top dollar, wait whatever time necessary. But a motivated person, and there's a lot of reason somebody becomes motivated, right? Death, divorce, inheriting an unwanted property, flood damage, fire damage, like a million reasons you can come up with. Life happens. They all of a sudden realize, God, and Americans are horrible savers, by the way. What do you think the average American saves per year?
$500, if that.
Yeah, it's like the average American has $7,000 to $8,000 in their bank account at most, and that's like at most. Most people are living paycheck to paycheck, and so when life hits you pretty hard and all your money's trapped in the equity in your home, they're looking for a solution. And so Jeremy figured out, hey, if I can get in front of them when they're in pain, I might be able to cut a deal and they'll sell at a discount. And so you negotiate with the motivated seller to buy their property at a discount, and then you flip it to somebody looking for a good deal in the closing period. So if I say, "Hey, I'm going to buy your house and pay you 500 grand, let's say it's worth 700. I'm going to pay 500 grand for it and I'll close in 30 days." And you say, "Okay," and we sign a contract. Even though I haven't bought it yet, because I signed that contract with you, I now control your real estate. You can't sell it to anybody else. It's basically mine. I just haven't bought it yet. Well, during that 30-day period, if I turn around and I find somebody else and I say, "Hey, I got this good deal. It's worth 700. I'll sell it to you for 520. Who wants it?" And some, landlord or rehabber says, "I want that deal. I can add an addition. I can make it worth 800 if I add some square footage and stuff." They have a vision for it, and they have money, but not a lot of time to go hunt down good deals. And so you play like a middleman role and just flip that contract over to the real buyer who has cash. And when they close, you get the spread that you created. So if you mark it up from 500 to 520, you get a $20,000 spread.
Right.
And he penciled this out on this napkin, and I took it and I was like, oh my God, like this might be my path. I don't know why I felt that way, but it was just very exciting to me. But unfortunately, there's no internet, there's no podcast, there's no YouTube University. It was little ads in the back of newspapers that said, "Real estate conference, Reno, Nevada, $500, phone number."
Question though, like, so let's say you got a 30-day contract, like you said, and you don't find a buyer in time. Now, do you still
Yeah.
have to come up with the 500 grand to buy it?
Well, that's where escape clauses and knowing your paperwork and
Ah,
understanding how to get out of a
got it. Got
deal,
it.
or going back and renegotiating with the seller and extending time or lowering
Got
the
it.
price. So, I mean, and this happens. This is all
Sure.
part of the nuances of wholesaling. But let's just say the general concept is I go to this conference, I learn the process, I learn my paperwork. I don't have to have a fancy watch, a fancy office, a suit, a bunch of resources. I was a kid that looked like I was 15 years old going to college.
Right.
Um, D student my whole entire, childhood, maybe 1C. And now I'm out of the Navy. I'm more confident. I'm gunning. I'm looking for a path. I thought I wanted to be a ninth grade history teacher, but they don't make any money, unfortunately.
Right.
And so here I am at this conference watching these people parade up on stage going, oh my God, they're getting real estate rich. I could do that. And I started just getting really excited. And I started buying courses, books, tapes, anything on credit. I had no money, but I had a credit card and I had decent credit because I was paying my bills while I was in the Navy. And so I racked up about $30,000 in credit card debt,
Back when 30,000 was a lot of money.
a significant amount to me. I was just obsessed with trying to learn. I probably went to maybe 24 conferences. I bought everything. The gurus loved me.
Right.
I'm the guy running up, throwing my credit card up on stage, being like, I want it. I'll take it all. And unfortunately, I got information overload. I got 1 month turned to 4, turned to 6, turned to 9. Now I'm feeling the weight of my decisions. Everything I thought was going to be so easy was very overwhelming. And I had a piece of crap Nissan pickup truck, $30,000 in credit card debt. Now my self-limiting beliefs are screaming at me. It's getting louder. My parents are sitting me down saying, you're making a huge mistake. What are you doing? Stay focused on school. You're getting distracted. My girlfriend at the time was like trying to print out a resume and put it in front of me and was like, you need to go get a job so that way you can pay these bills. Cause I was like kind of bumming off her.
Right.
And I just kept saying, no. I swear this is going to work. I swear this is going to work. Well, around the 9.5 month, I had a deal and I was pretty sure it was going to get done. And I was so excited that this deal was coming together because I was like, finally, I was going to transition from hope to like reality. Like I was going to do this thing. And I got a great deal under contract. So I controlled the real estate and I started marketing it and I started calling people I met at like networking events. And I called this one real estate agent and I had a pretty good relationship with this person. I had talked to them, dozens of times over like a 4 or 5 month period. And I said, I got this deal. And he said, send it to me. And then after I sent it to him, he said, I love the deal. I want it, but I have some more questions. And I didn't know how to answer the questions. I was still kind of new. And he said, is there any way I could talk to the seller?
Oh.
And I'm like, okay. And he said, if you put me in touch with the seller, I promise I'll just ask my questions. And if they answer it, I'll take the deal. I said, okay. So I connected the seller and the buyer together. Well, they built a relationship. And I'm sure you can tell where this story is going. It wasn't going to be a lot of money, but maybe $5,000 or $10,000 I was going to make. But at the last minute, the guy said, I'll take the deal. However, my lender will not allow me to pay like a middleman or something. They want me to go direct to the seller in order for this hard money loan thing to go through. And I was like, okay. And he goes, but I promise I'll pay you outside of escrow. And I'm like, it's only like 5 or 10 grand or whatever. I'm like, okay, I trust you. Let's do it. Of course, as soon as the deal closes, I call the guy up. I say, pay me my money. And he said, I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh my God.
And I said, what do you mean? And next thing you know, we're arguing. And he's like, listen, kid, you don't get it. Like, I have a license here and it's illegal for me to pay you outside of escrow. I have no idea what you're talking about. Basically, kick rocks. I lost my freaking mind. The injustice of it all. I went full tilt. My girl talked me off the cliff from driving over there and like stomping this guy. And that was the day I quit the business. I just threw in the towel. I was so pissed and I was so overwhelmed and just fed up that I just was like, F it. And I went and got a job as a bookkeeper and just started working. I was grateful for the job. A guy.
That had to be dark, man.
It sucked. It's like one of those things where it's like, you've invested so much time, energy, and you believed so much. I was so obsessed with like doing this real estate thing. But that voice in my head was so loud at the time that I was just like, well, maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I need to wait. Maybe I don't have what it takes, whatever. And so I'm a bookkeeper. For about 4.5 months, I was doing the bookkeeping thing, and I was miserable, khaki pants, cubicle,
Right.
going to school, working overtime. But I was grateful for the job, and I was just trying to like just do it with the best attitude I could, but I was miserable. And then my friend Zach said, let's go to another conference. And I said, no, you're crazy. He said, one more, promise this one's different. I said, nope, I'm not doing it. I'm so broke and in debt because of these decisions. Like, I can't do it. And he said, all right, I'll pay for it. Let's treat it like a vacation to San Francisco with your boy, Zach. And I'm like, okay, fine, let's go. Thank God I went. Because I walked into that conference. It was put on by an old timer called Jack Miller. He was out of Florida, one of the realest OGs in the game. Wasn't trying to sell you shit from stage, wasn't doing a song and dance. He was just up there talking deals, he called it transactional engineering. He was just talking about doing deals from like a real guy who's in the trenches doing deals. And everybody, there was about maybe 600 people in the crowd, and everybody was older and everybody was totally into it. And they were all friends, and they go to conferences for 25 years together. And this is like what they do. And at that lunch, I met a guy named Lyle, who became my first real estate mentor. And to keep the story short, within 2 months of meeting Lyle, I did my first real estate deal. And I think I was able to do it because Lyle taught me things that you can't learn in books. Real old school wisdom type stuff. And he was a Socratic mentor. He allowed me to discover.
How old was he?
He was probably 65 at the time.
Oh,
now
nice.
he's in his 80s. But
Okay.
yeah, he just was this old time. I mean, he had Adidas sweatpants pulled up to his nipples, wrinkly, unironed polo shirt, and old man Velcro shoes. He was that guy just sitting at the bar telling war stories. And I was fascinated by him. And he happened to have a house here in Arizona and a house in Colorado. And so me and Lyle became fast friends. And by the way, mentorship is so vitally important because I tried doing it on my own. I had so much ego. I thought I could do it. I wasn't able to do it. 2 months of Lyle mentoring, and I'm off to the races. And it didn't take, within 12 months of doing my first deal, I made $1.3 million flipping houses.
Wow.
So it was like nothing for 14, 15, 16 months. Then boom, I just went on this tear, and it shifted everything in my life. I was the first millionaire in my family, first multimillionaire, retired my parents very shortly afterwards, all because I went to that one more seminar. And Lyle told me at that lunch break, because I pitched him after spending about 3 hours talking to him. I couldn't get enough of this guy. I said, what's it going to take for you to teach me? And he said, you don't want me to teach you. And I said, I will do anything if you teach me, like literally anything. Like, I'll quit my job right now. Like, I'm doing the Wolf of Wall Street thing. I'm like, I'll fucking quit my job. I will literally quit right now. And he's like, dude, you don't have what it takes. Like, you don't want it bad enough. And I'm like, I swear to God, I want it bad enough. And we're doing this like back and forth thing. And I'm like, I swear to God, like, I will do anything. I want this so bad. And he goes, anything? And I said, anything. And he goes, okay, 3 things then. Number 1, you get me $10,000 in $2 bills by 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay.
I'm like, what the fuck? Where am I going to get all the $2 bills and stuff? And I don't even have $10,000. I'm just thinking like, that's never going to happen. So what's the next? He goes, you like baseball? I said, yeah. And he goes, 3 strikes, you're out. You do something I don't like, you talk back, you annoy me, you get a strike. By the 3rd one, I'm cutting you off, never talking to you again. I'm like, okay. And he goes, oh, and I keep your money. I said, okay, what's the 3rd one? And he goes, your first big deal, you get to keep 100% of it, but every deal you do from that day forward, I get to decide what I take and what you get. If I'm involved in your life in any way, shape, or form as a mentor to you, it's my call.
Wow. So Mr. Miyagi shit.
So would you do it?
I don't know. Is the honest answer. I don't know.
Yeah. I didn't even have to think. I was just like, done, let's go. And then now I had to figure out how to get $10,000.
By the way, the only one of those 3 that would have given me pause was the 3rd one, right? Because you don't know the guy that well, right? So you have to say, okay, why do I think this guy's not? And especially after having gotten screwed as badly as you did as unfairly as you were. What allowed you to what was it about him that made you trust him?
I don't know. I just felt, you know how like sometimes you just meet people and the energy's right?
Yeah.
I just felt like I'm supposed to be here with him.
Mm,
You know, I still talk to Lyle all the time. He's one of my favorite people on planet Earth.
I bet.
And, you know, I wouldn't be where I'm at without him locking arms with me that day. You
Mm,
know, I always tell people I'm not out here because I'm great. I'm here because great people did amazing things for me
mm.
in my journey. Now I worked really hard, but they opened many, many doors. And he was the first big mentor I ever had and taught me. I didn't even know what a mentor was. He just taught me s- and became the mentor. And I have hundreds of war stories of him allowing me to discover the truth without telling me directly.
Mm.
But he let me keep that first 40, which changed my life because I was able to pay off some debt. I was able to help out my parents. I was able to quit my bookkeeping job, do real estate full time. And like I said, I started to collapse time. Took me all that time to do that first deal. It only took me 2 months to do my second one month to do my third, and only a couple weeks to do my fourth. And then I was like on this tear.
Right.
And it's because wholesaling is actually very simple. I was overcomplicating it,
Mm.
you know, and I tell my students all the time, I'm like, dude, nobody gives a shit about your logo or your website
Hmm.
or your business card or any of that dumb stuff. You know, it's like just get good at talking to people. That was it. I was scared to talk to people
Mm.
the right way.
Yeah.
And that's normal when you're new. But I had to get out of my own way to be able to do
What
that.
was that process like? So here you are. I've got a whole bunch of questions
Yeah.
now. But so your family and your friends, they weren't your cheerleader, not for any bad reasons, but just because you had really gotten kicked in the teeth pretty bad, and so now all of a sudden you're winning. I'm curious, did it kind of show? I mean, I'm sure with your family they were just probably over the moon, but maybe with some of your friends, maybe some people were happier for you than others, or
Nobody was happy for me. In fact,
what?
as I was, I mean, like people super close to me, like my
Right.
best friends and stuff, but like, no, it wasn't really like that back then. In fact, none of my friends ever read a book, talked about business, talked about money, talked about. Look, the part I skipped in the beginning of my story is before I went in the Navy, I was selling drugs out of a Burger King drive-through window.
Okay.
You know, I was a hustler, like a
Right.
little hustler, but not a very motivated hustler. I would do just enough to buy more weed for me to smoke.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and so my friends were more about partying and stuff like
Mm.
that. They weren't thinking about life and success and all that. And so, in fact, more of them were talking shit because it's like, oh, look at Cody trying to be real estate guru. Look at
Right.
Cody talking about getting real estate rich. So it was more like
Mm.
rubbing me than supporting me. And so, you know, you just got to kind of buckle up and do it on your own. Uh, but yeah, one time I got two strikes pretty fast with
Oh,
Lyle.
really?
Right, pretty fast
Well,
because that's my personality. You know,
yeah,
I
yeah,
push
yeah.
boundaries pretty quickly to test things. And one of the second strike I got is because I wasn't making phone calls. He kept telling me like, dude, you're never gonna get a deal if you don't talk to more people. You got to talk to people. Got to talk to people. Got to sit down at kitchen tables. You got to get your teeth kicked in. You got to screw up. You got to make offers. You got to do it. You know, stop educating yourself. Get out of the classroom. Get into the real world. Fail in the real world.
Mm.
And that was very scary for me because I looked so young. So that was my number one self-limiting belief
Right.
is anybody ever going to take me serious? And so I I was lying to him and telling him, "Oh, I'm making my calls. He would print out like these lead sheets
Right. Right.
basically and
Right.
say, call these people, call these people. And they were like foreclosures and, you know, I don't know where he got all the leads, but he would just put them in front of me and say, call these phone numbers. And I wasn't calling them. And
Mm.
he knew I wasn't calling them because he put a bunch of his own phone numbers in the list. And then he would ask me, did you make your calls? And I'd be like, oh yeah, I called everybody. And he's like, mm-hmm, make them again tomorrow. And after a couple days, he realized I was bullshitting. And so he said, that's strike number 2. One more. I'm never talking to you again. And I was like, well, Lyle, I'm scared. I think I'm hesitant. You know, like the phone feels like it's 10,000 pounds.
Right.
You know, what if they say yes? What if they say no? What if they did? What if they hit me with objection? I was hitting him with all these things, all these fears. And he said, man, shut up. Here's some scripts. Here's an address. Meet me here at midnight tonight. No questions. I'm like, okay. So midnight, I go to the address. I'm in Mesa, Arizona. I'm at a cemetery, sitting outside the cemetery waiting for Lyle to come. He never comes. Calls me, says, you got your scripts? I said, yeah. And he goes, I said, where are you? I'm sitting out at this scary ass cemetery. He said, I'm not coming to a cemetery at midnight. What are you, nuts? Walk into the middle of it, get out your scripts, find a light, and we're going to role play. And we were there for about an hour role playing at night in the cold. And I'm standing in a cemetery role playing with Lyle Wall. And after about maybe 30, 40 minutes, I just started laughing out loud. I'm like,
Right.
oh my God, this is so ridiculous. And he's like, and I just started to get it. And he's like, Cody, you sound great. You're going to do great. If you could do that in the scariest place on planet Earth, you could do it in your dress PJs in the comfort of your own home. So quit being a bitch, quit sabotaging, and fucking make your calls because it's going to make you rich. And I said, I get it. I get it. I'm on it. And from that day forward, I loved making my calls. It's like the light switch flicked on and it was just like, oh, I'm going to attack this with everything I got. But he did one other thing for me that day. As I'm leaving, he said, I want you just to look around for a minute. All those people in their graves, 99% of them slid in there full of regret, never living out their full potential. That's you, man. That's you. I see you just making these choices, and you're going to be that guy that never makes it in life. But you might be a victim, going around life with your little blame thrower, pointing the fingers at everybody, or you're going to be somebody who steps the fuck up and makes the call and makes regret one of the highest things on their list of things that they should fear. And you're going to start going for it, and you're going to become fearless and great someday. So, make the call. And I was like, damn, okay.
That's like Mr. Miyagi stuff, wax on, wax off, the whole 9 yards. Jeez.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
That's amazing. Well, how'd you come up with where'd you get the $10,000 in $2 bills?
My dad. I cut the worst deal on planet Earth, though. I had to get 10, and he went around and got them for me and, did everything. But I had to give him back 25. So he charged me a significant penalty for helping me. But that's how my dad always was.
Right.
Yeah, he's like, but I also made a promise that if this doesn't work, I'll never do it again, and I'll stay focused on school. Yeah.
So I'm trying to imagine the conversation you're having with your dad. Hey, I need you to get $10,000 in $2 bills because I met this 65-year-old guy at a conference.
At a bar.
He must have been like, have you lost your fucking mind?
Yeah. But I think he wanted me so desperately to throw in the towel on this thing.
Oh, that makes sense.
That he was just like, whatever we got to do to get you to give this up.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Okay. Well, so, wow. This, what an amazing, first of all, I got to tell you, you're an amazing storyteller. One of the best I've ever heard, by the way. Straight
Thank
up. You. You still have the napkin, the real estate guy gave you?
You know what? I do somewhere.
Okay.
I had it maybe 10 years ago or 8 years ago. I found it. I think I have a safe at my house that I threw it in. I have a couple memorabilia. I was on $1 Million Listing Los Angeles a few times, the TV show.
Yeah.
And I was buying this big house, and me and Josh Altman were negotiating and going back and forth. And he wrote, we were negotiating on a napkin. So I kept that napkin from the show.
Okay.
And I think I threw them both in the safe. But the safe, I haven't been able to get it in the safe. I lost the combination. So we're gonna crack the safe.
I have
someday.
to get the blame. I never heard the term blame thrower before. I love that, though. I think I'm going to steal that one.
Yeah, go for
it. So let me ask you this question. So when does tenacity become insanity in your mind? Because I feel like a lot of people would say you might have been on that line there.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the way I look at it is like, look, if some people chase motivation and I just don't. I don't care about a pump up speech. I don't care about motivation. I don't care about how I feel or any of that. I'm thinking discipline. I'm like, every person I've ever studied, every book of every famous person, they all have one thing in common. They have insane amount of discipline, right? And so it's like, how do I shift from motivation to discipline? It's like, it's got to be that obsession of like, I'm going to do this no matter what. And integrity to me isn't just keeping your word to other people. It's keeping your word to yourself.
Right.
And so that was my bad habit for so long. I wasn't keeping the promises I made to myself. And so once I did that first deal and I knew that this was real, like I know planes fly, okay, there's no more bullshit excuses I can ever come up with other than we're going to make it happen no matter what. No matter how I feel, no matter what, lack of resources, lack of love, lack of support, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to have the most insane discipline and I'm going to out discipline everybody.
Hmm.
And so it just became an obsession. The downside to that for me was it ruined a lot of other things. I became so obsessed with this goal that I wasn't a good friend.
Hmm.
I wasn't good with my health. I wasn't a good partner in a relationship. Eventually, I wasn't a good dad.
Hmm.
I wasn't good at anything but the thing that I was obsessed over, because it's really hard to be obsessed over multiple things.
Yeah.
And I lost a lot along the way, unfortunately. I dominated the money game,
Right.
but I lost a lot of other things.
So how have you? And it sounds like you've revisited that, and how have you reframed that and recalibrated?
Well, rock bottom's basement will do a lot for you. Yeah. Um, as I started doing more and more deals, I started doing bigger deals. And I went from wholesaling, no money down type stuff to, and my mentor hated wholesaling, by the way. Lyle was like, dude, wholesaling's not real estate investing. That's like a job. Like, you're flipping widgets, good job. You're making money, good job. But you're still in earned income bracket. You need to shift over to investment bracket, so that way it's the rich dad, poor dad thing, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
you need assets, bro. And you don't have any assets. You have your work ethic, and that's it. And so I started keeping more of them. And there's this whole world of creative real estate. No, wholesaling's one lane in it, but imagine if I showed up to somebody and they have a 4% mortgage on their house. Well, if I look out in the marketplace right now, mortgages are 7 or 8%. Well, what would I rather have? A house with a 4% or 3% mortgage or whatever, or a 7 or 8% mortgage? Obviously, that makes a big difference in cash flow on that property.
Huge.
So what if I can convince that seller to leave their mortgage in place and let me just step in and start making payments? It's called a subject to transaction,
Mm-hmm.
or a wraparound mortgage. What if they own the house free and clear and I convince them to be my bank? So I bypass a traditional bank with paperwork and credit and all, large down payments, and I work out a deal directly with somebody who owns a house free and clear. Do you know it's like 40% of all real estate in America is owned free and clear?
Really?
It's a significantly
Did
higher
not
amount than
know.
you
I
would
would have
think.
guessed like 10 or 15%.
No,
Wow.
no, it's very high. There's tons of free and clear real estate, tons. Well, what if I can convince a seller to be my bank and participate in giving me the loan that I need?
Hmm.
So Lyle taught me the creative finance game. And so I started buying houses and keeping them, putting them in a rental portfolio. And then he kept saying, dude, residential real estate is not where, really wealthy people play. They play in commercial real estate. So you got to get over into multifamily or commercial very quickly. So I started doing more in apartments. Right now I own a little over 800 apartment doors, and, I don't know how many Airbnbs. I have 35 Airbnbs and a bunch of other rental property. But I got into commercial. I started buying big commercial,
Mm.
single tenant, triple net lease buildings. First started with, owning the building that my companies run out of, and then I kind of expanded from there. I started a development company called Green Elephant Development, and we started building spec houses, luxury spec houses, and then we eventually got into doing hard street corners and doing land entitlement
Mhm.
type stuff. Do you know what that is?
I don't.
Land entitlement is like, okay, let's take this table right here. This table right here, if that was a piece of land, right now it's like the city designated that land to be used to build houses on. But if I show up and I work with the city, and it might take a year or 2 years, and I change its usage from houses to Chipotle drive-throughs and Chick-fil-A drive-throughs and a Target shopping center or something like that, it has now significantly increased the value of that land because I changed its usage
Okay.
with the city.
Mm.
It's called land entitlements. So it's getting approval without, but it's still raw land, but now it can be something new, better can be built on it. And
Is that different from zoning?
it's zoning.
Okay.
It's like
Okay.
it's zoning.
Got
Yeah. But it's an art form. You got to learn how to work with the city. I might be trying to change its usage, and you got some dickhead councilman that wants a bus stop and a park with his name on it.
Right.
And you're like, it's like kind of like pork in a bill, right?
Yeah,
It's like you got to figure out how to work the system in order to get the approvals in a timely manner. But it's no different than if I take a house and you might look at the house and say, yeah, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. This is what it's worth. But I might look at it and say, no, there's plenty of buildable land on it. Let's turn it into a 4-bedroom, 3-bath or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And by adding square foot, I'm adding value. In an apartment building, I might buy an old apartment building. The rents are $1,000 a month on every unit. Say it's a 100-unit apartment complex. There's every unit's being rented out for $1,000 a month. Well, if I go in there and remodel 25% of the apartments on there, and I change the rent from 1,000 to 2,000 on those 25, because now the apartment building's bringing in more cash flow because only a quarter of them are renovated, I've now significantly increased the value of that apartment complex. So I can now sell the apartment complex to the next guy, and he goes, okay, 25% is done. I'm going to do now my turn. I'm going to do another 25%, increase those rents, get more cash flow, flip it to the next guy. And every time they keep doing that, that's why apartment buildings keep getting more and more valuable because the rents increase. Land is change its usage. Yeah. And so we started doing a ton of that. And I don't remember why I was telling you this, but
I two other questions I want to come back to. So one, I was curious, how much of the deals after the first one did Lyle take?
Yeah, I forgot about that. So I probably did, I don't know, 300 or 400 deals.
With Lyle involved.
Mhm.
Wow.
Sometimes he would and by the way, Jeremy making $80,000 was not normal.
Right.
My average wholesale fee was like 15 grand, 10 grand,
right.
Sometimes 5, sometimes 3 grand,
Right.
sometimes $500. I was just doing anything to make a buck.
Yep.
Every once in a while I'd hit a home run. I'd make 100 grand, 80 grand, 50 grand, some crazy number, but most of them were like 15 grand because you want to leave a lot of meat on the bone. Because if I sell you a good deal and you go out, renovate it and list it on the MLS and make 80 grand, and I made 10, you're thinking, I love this guy.
Yeah.
You're going to call me up. You got anything else? You got anything else? So I want to do you right.
That's smart.
And keep my business going. So Lyle would just kind of assess the situation and my attitude at the time. And he'd be like, all right, I'm going to take half. All right, I'm going to take 3 grand. Okay, that one I'm only going to take $500. That one I'm going to take whatever. And normally he was pretty fair. But now it had been like 3 years. And I'm still kind of got him in my world. Every once in a while I call him up and say, hey, I need to borrow money from somebody. He'd be like, either he'd lend me money or he'd introduce me to somebody, or I need a resource, he'd introduce me. So he was still very valuable to me. But he started taking more and more and more and more and more. And he started doing less and less and less for me.
You think that was on purpose?
Well, towards the end, I started getting really pissed off at him. And I'm like, Lyle, that last deal, you took way too much. Like, you're fucking overreaching, dude. Like, I don't know if you know, but I'm like the golden boy. You know, like, this is my ego, right? I'm like, I'm the fucking golden boy with you. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're treating me like a piece of shit. Like, I'm one of these kids that are just getting started. I'm making you a fortune. You made millions off me. What are you doing? He just said, okay, you know, ignore it pretty much. And then on the next deal, he whacked me over the head and took almost all of it. And I lost it. I was like, you know what, man, fuck you. I'm so sick and tired of this shit. I've been your #1 student. I'm the best thing that ever happened to you. I've supported you more than anybody else. I know your family. I've vacationed with you. We travel. I've done a gazillion deals with you, and you're going to fucking do me like this? I don't fucking need you. Fuck you. And he's just like, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, what are you celebrating? Me pissed off? And then
it clicked.
I'm like, dude, really? And he goes, you haven't needed me for years, Cody, years. But you've used me like a little bit of a crutch.
Right.
And now it's time for you to fly on your own. You got this. Like, we're done.
This guy sounds amazing.
And it was the end of our mentorship and the beginning of just a normal friendship. Yeah. And it was such a great lesson. And I've been able to take some of the best of what he's taught me and add my own sizzle to it. And now I've had over 80,000 students come through my programs. I've mentored thousands and thousands personally.
That was where I was going to go next, and you already beat me to the punch, which is, you know, obviously, in you know, mentorship's been, and actually in my case, the reason mentorship is so important to me is because I never really had one. So I've had 2 professional mentors, very short term, but they weren't. I've always been looking for a holistic mentor, someone who's a good parent, a good partner, a good friend, a good human being, also successful. And I just never had that. And so I'm like, you know, I want to be that for others. You know, that thing I was telling you about my cancer misdiagnosis and so forth. I swore to myself if it somehow turned out for me, I would genuinely try to touch as many people's lives in a positive way as I could because of that, because I really didn't think it was going to work out for me. And yeah, and so I'm curious about your mentorship to others. And do you find that there's benefits to you besides financial in you mentoring other people?
Oh, tons. You want to learn more? Dial in your systems, teach.
Right.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Here's what I don't love. I don't love some young kid who sees guys with Lamborghinis and Range Rovers and stuff, and they have a little coaching program online nowadays. And they're like, oh, I'm going to do that. And they go do one or two deals. And next thing you know, they got a course they're trying to slang,
Right.
online. I don't really respect that. I don't like that. I,
There's
I
so
didn't,
much of that in
I didn't
Miami.
teach a single person
Mm.
for a decade almost.
Oh, wow.
Like nobody. I had my head down. Now I would teach my team members and stuff, but like people were coming up to me all the time, throwing, hey, can I spend the day with you? Can you teach me? Can I see your systems and stuff? I was like, no, why would I teach you any? Like, I'm killing it right now. And I just kept my head down and I got really freaking good at what I was doing. Like I said, I scaled all the way up into the bigger commercial stuff. Um, when I finally decided to take on somebody, um, it happened organically. Somebody came and said, I want to pay you $10,000 to spend a day with you and just shadow you. And I was like, okay. Am I responsible for anything after the day?
Right.
And he's like, nope. Just please show me, like, pull back the curtain on your business. How are you doing what you're doing? Because I'm not able to do it. And he was in another state.
Okay.
I was like, okay. So he gave me 10 G's. And I was like, this is how I'm building my buyer list, my cash buyer list that I'm selling all my deals to. This is the technology stack that I'm using. This is how I approach homeowners with my marketing. Here's my magic bullet postcard. Here's the unique language that I've tested, 1,000 times to get it to have a higher, everybody else gets a 3% response rate. I'm at like a 9% response rate because of this particular postcard and da 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 da. And I just was showing them all my marketing stuff that I was doing. And pay me 10 grand and left. And I was like, back to business. And then a couple months later, I get a phone call from him. And he says, I want a friend to go do what I did. I have another friend that wants to do it. What you did for me changed my life. And I'm like, oh yeah, how you been? Like, what's been going on? And he's like, dude, I went from doing a couple deals a month to doing over 15 a month now. Like, I've scaled significantly. Thank you. Best 10 grand I ever spent. I'm like, shit. Okay. That's cool. Like, I'm proud of you.
Good.
Like, good job.
Yeah.
I didn't know, like, take it or not use it, like whatever. I wasn't really worried about it. But then the friend came and paid me 10 grand, did the exact same thing, and showed him a couple new things that I was doing along the way. And then same thing. Next thing you know, referrals started coming in. And that's how Clever Investor, the education business, was born. And so I just started recording myself doing deals long before anybody else was doing it. Like, I've never heard of an influencer. I was just doing it because I was a deal maker, deal junkie. I loved doing it. And I was like, let's record it. Let's just capture everything I'm doing. So I'd be at a kitchen table and I'd be asking the seller, are you okay if I record this negotiation? They'd be like, yeah, as long as you pay me what I want. Like, I don't give a shit. And people had never seen that before. It was raw deal making, wholesaling. This is 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, like before social media was big. And it just turned into something that took off. It was like a side hustle thing because I wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
And so
that's right. You want to be a history teacher.
I wanted to be a history teacher. So it was natural for me. And everybody around town was calling me the Clever Investor. So I just started a company called Clever Investor, thinking, well, these people every once in a while show up and they want me to teach them. I'll show them these videos that I'm making and I'll teach them some things in the office and maybe they'll pay me some more money. And man, did that take off. Being a real estate investor is kind of like you got a small team, you're just doing your thing. Being an educator, and I was at the birth of online education. We didn't know what we were doing. It was like the Wild West. It was like me in front of a camera. I was nervous to even talk in front of a camera. Right. It's like,
clearly I've gotten over that.
I've gotten more confident, but right. Man, I can't even tell you how many hundreds of times I deleted the video footage without ever watching it. Because I was embarrassed. I'm like, right. Oh my God, that was nobody can ever see that, And I wish I had that footage now because it's like the rawest, purest version of me learning how to talk on video. But Clever I put a course out, and I think in 3 months I made $600,000 selling this course.
Right.
It just, I wasn't even good at selling. I just
Right.
put it out there and it just started going.
What year was that?
2010.
Wow. Wow. You were early, really early.
And it was just like, whoa, okay, we're in business. Like, we got a company.
Right.
And so I started hiring people, and they'd be like, what are we doing? I'm like, I have no idea. Like, we're going to take like what old school gurus were doing, like infomercials and shit, and we're going to digitize it.
Right.
And we're going to put it online, and they're like, okay, how's this work? And now YouTube wasn't really popular back then. There was the videos on it, but it wasn't like what it is today. And there was no online training systems. We had to build it from the ground up. And then we had to learn how to do direct response marketing, which is a whole nother thing we could talk about. I became one of the best. I've sold over $150 million worth of courses online so far.
Wow.
And I had to learn what a funnel is, how an email marketing works. Like, I was doing it with my cash buyers, but I wasn't really doing it to sell things. I had to learn how to create a webinar, how to create a VSL, video sales letter, how to do follow-ups, close down sequences, upsells, downsells, side sells. Like, all of this new stuff we just learned from 2010 to 2013.
Well, talk about the pivot from being a real estate investor, working with your mentor, and then building a business. Now, that's a whole different thing where you've got to build a team and a culture. And talk about that pivot, and were there challenges there? Did it come to you naturally?
Well, I loved what I was doing so much. Like, people ask me all the time, like, when I hear people say like, oh, I got to go to work, I'm like, that's your attitude? Like, I love that I get to go to work. I float into work. Like, I am one of the lucky few that, like, I'm living my purpose. I'm in alignment with my purpose. And so the teaching thing just came like as excitement. I was just so grateful that real estate changed my life, and I was able to retire my parents. Even today, like, my mom died of cancer. We can talk about that, but my mom died of cancer 2 years ago. And the last 7 years, my dad was able to spend every minute with my mom and never have to worry about money because of real estate.
Right.
It's just so,
Well,
I'm so
because of
grateful
you.
for it. Well, yes, because he got me those freaking $2 bills. You know, it's like, because we just made the decision that I was going to do one more conference and make the call to keep trying, even though I quit. And it's okay to unquit.
Yeah. It's
okay to, get up on the right side of the bed one day and just say, you know what, I'm going to go back at it. Like, when Clever started taking off, I didn't know what I was doing. So I just started bringing in other great real estate investors and other great people that were good at certain pieces. And I learned very early on as an entrepreneur that in most cases, the owner or the main leader of the company, they're not the best person for almost every single job in the company. And I had to learn that, like, the hard way, because I was like one of those people that like to control things. So I was trying to do everything myself, and I was way overcomplicating it, taking way too long and all that. So I started putting the right people in the right seats of the bus and seeing if I can't move those pieces around until I get it right. And I learned very early on that you need to know a couple things. First off, it has to be very clear what you do. Very clear. What you do and what you don't do, right? It's like, this is what we do, and we're going to be the world's best at it. This is why we do it. So everybody in this organization is very clear. This is what we do. This is why we do it. Oh, and this is how we do it, right? We need to know what, how, why. The last part was the part I missed for the first probably 5 years, and then I finally got it after I had what's called regrettable turnover. When you lose key people and it really hurts your business, like I lost a key marketing guy, I lost some partnerships and stuff, is the what's in it for you if you do it with me. And that's always the hardest part for young entrepreneurs to explain, because we're flying by the seat of our pants. We can't clearly see the future. Like, we kind of can, but it's hard to articulate sometimes.
Right.
And so it's like, here I am, this entrepreneur with this huge vision. We're going to be the #1 online education company in the real estate investing space in America. But then here comes you, David, and I'm trying to enroll you, and I love that word. I'm going to enroll you into our organization, but you're kind of an entrepreneurial spirit type guy. Maybe you've owned your own businesses. Maybe you've had some partnerships. You're not You're a wild stallion. You're not somebody that's going to easily just be like, yeah, let me come work for you.
Yeah.
But if I can turn you into a great entrepreneur and put you in the right seat of the bus and give you that alignment, like you have your big vision, I have my big vision, and we can fit them together,
Mm.
and this is where we're going, and 1 + 1 = 11, then all of a sudden now we're good, right?
Yeah.
We're back in. And so I had to get really good at enrolling. Sales, persuasion, influence, the number one skill I'll tell anybody.
What's your favorite book on persuasion, if you have one?
It's hard because there's like, negotiation books that are really good. Cialdini is like one of my
Robert
favorite.
Cialdini,
Yeah.
Influence and Persuasion.
Persuasion,
Yeah.
all that. But I learned a lot of it from just studying other people that I met that were great deal makers
Mm.
and just great operators. I realized that I'm not a great operator. I need great, operations people around me
Right.
to help fill in the blanks. But if I can't persuade and enroll you into it, I can't even get it going in the
Yeah.
first
To me,
place.
to me, people just don't pay enough attention to alignment of incentives, and you have to understand what makes someone tick. And you have to understand what they're motivated by. Like you said, it's it's a fool's errand if you're managing everyone the same way. Everyone's different.
Mhm.
A good leader understands that. Like a good parent understands that. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, and your kids are different.
Yeah.
You know,
So, talk a little bit about, because obviously being able to retire your folks, and I've had an epiphany of my own here in the last, because it's funny, I had the thought, but I had it in a very unformed way. It's much more concrete for me now, which is service to others to me is the only path, I think, to real happiness, purpose, and satisfaction in life. And again, service to others can take all kinds of forms, right? It could be your parents, it could be your kids, it could be your friends, all of those things.
Mhm.
How do you view service to others? And obviously with your folks, it was very
Mhm.
clear. But I'm just curious how you think about that.
Real simple. I think this is what you do. You cannot help a single person in your world. I don't care if you're the nicest person in the world, the most amiable, you go around, hug everybody, it doesn't matter. You can't actually help a single person until you yourself are empowered and taken care of first. It's the
Put your
old
oxygen mask on first.
it's the old
Right.
adage, like, put your mask on first and help the people around you. The number one thing that every single person listening to this should do right now is an activity audit, a habit audit, a who is influencing you audit. Audit your fucking world right now and be like, what is happening that is preventing me from stepping into my full potential? It doesn't matter if it's in health, spirituality, money, doesn't matter. You've taken yourself as far as you can, but there's a lot of your bad habits that are preventing you from leveling up. And I just think that people are self-sabotaging. They don't even realize that they're doing it to themselves.
Mm.
And you got to break a lot of those habits. So we were talking about integrity, right? It's like, how many promises did you make yourself on every New Year's resolution that
Right.
you don't keep 3 months in, 2
How many
months in?
people are at the gym on the first week of January
Yeah.
versus the first week of March?
It's like, it goes back to discipline. It's
Right.
like, why are you constantly letting yourself down or hiding your pain in drugs, alcohol, porn, chasing women, whatever? It's like all those self-sabotaging things are
Mm.
preventing you from getting to where you need to go. And so by auditing and just getting total extreme ownership, right?
Mm.
Like just getting real with yourself. You could lie to everybody around you and bullshit everybody, but when you look in the mirror, you know the truth.
Yeah.
You know that you're eating too much. You know that you're getting distracted with porn. You know that you're overworking and you're neglecting your family. You know that, if you want to build a healthier body, I saw something the other day that said 1 in 8 Americans is considered a millionaire.
Really?
1 in 8 on paper.
Okay.
Real estate, probably, like whatever,
Right.
the value of their assets, whatever. Everything's inflated right now. So,
Yeah.
if they have a house and a car, they're probably worth $1 million on
Right.
paper. 1 in 25,000 Americans have a six pack.
Mm.
Significantly more people have better money than better health.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying six pack. It's like an analogy, right? I'm not
Yeah,
saying, some people are just born thin and their abs show. But the reality is, it's hard as hell to get a six pack. You got to put in a lot of work unless you're just blessed naturally.
Right.
Most people aren't. And we live in America, which is the highest obesity rate in the world, 43%. And so it's like, okay, what if you're one of those ripped, rich, and rare people that are like the intersection between, a millionaire and you have a six pack?
Right.
It's like, oh, that's what I want to do. But how do you get there? You're not going to get there if you don't put in a significant amount of work in the gym, take care of your health, and eat right, right? You got to move your body and eat right. People know this shit. They just don't do it. They're neglecting to do the mundane, boring, repetitive things that get you to six pack. It's not so what I'm saying, it's not a knowledge problem. It's an application problem. And that's it,
Well, talk about the concept of personal integrity or self-honesty, whatever you want to call it. I feel like something like 90 to 95% of all problems could be avoided if people were just honest with themselves. I think most people are not honest with themselves. I mean, at some level, we all know the truth. I think that's also
Yeah.
kind of true. But like, were you really consciously honest with yourself about your relationship, whether you're overweight, whether you're putting in the effort at work you need to? How do you think about because I want to come back to what we had talked about before, which is you recalibrating about not just about financial success, but maybe the other aspects of your life, and maybe you talk a little bit about kind of that recalibration process and where
Yeah.
you are in that journey
Yeah.
now.
So I was killing it on the money game, and I wasn't really great at everything else. I was not a very good friend, husband. I was out of alignment in a lot of other areas of my life. And a couple years ago, my mom started really going downhill for leukemia, and I knew the end was near. And it was getting harder and harder for her and for my dad and for the family. At the same time, my marriage was falling apart. We were great friends, but we weren't really intimate any longer. We had grown apart. And I kind of knew like a major storm was about to take over my life. I could just feel it. It was weighing me down. I couldn't even be my full potential. I had too many things out of alignment. Health was out of alignment. Spirituality. I was pretty much an atheist. I had no spiritual connection whatsoever. Here I am making millions and millions, over $10 million a year, every single year over year. I was making more money than the last. And I'm miserable. I'm completely miserable. I have the houses, the cars, the beautiful family, millions of social media followers, and I'm feeling empty. And I can't even put my finger on why. I just knew it was getting harder to breathe. And then the last week my mom was alive was really tough. It's not like the movies. People don't die quickly. It takes a long time to die. A long time.
It's sad.
It's awful. And she died in my arms. And, for the last probably 72 hours, it's the worst thing you've ever smelled, seen in your life. Like, it is awful. And your dad's crying in the corner. And, I had just sat my ex down and told her I wanted a divorce. So it was like I am at rock bottom's basement at that moment. It's a kind of a beautiful thing to be there, though, because it's an opportunity to make some real change and internalize that change and get so fed up with the nonsense and the pain and the being out of control that you'd finally draw that line in the sand. It's kind of like an alcoholic where it's like, yeah, I'm going to quit. And then you don't quit, or you quit for a little while and then you kind of relapse. Eventually you do hit a point where enough is enough. But it's not because somebody else told you enough is enough. It's because you told yourself that's it. And I had to get to that point where it was like, that's it, and really mean it. And I just went on this tear. I said, you know what? I can, like, if you would have asked me before that, is balance real? I'd say, fuck no.
Right.
Balance is impossible. It's a myth. Everybody's trying to chase balance. You're either going to be the best athlete in the world or you're going to be the best dad in the world, but you're not going to be both. Because you can't put the time in, the resource, the energy in. That's actually not true. That's actually not true. There is balance, but it's more presence than anything. It doesn't mean that you're going to have this perfect balance of energy all the time. There are moments I'm going to obsess over money, and my money game's going to flourish. And this might kind of suck a little bit. However, when I'm back over here, I'm only over here. I'm not over here, but thinking about this any longer. And so I went on this tear and I was like, I'm going to get in the best health of my life. So I started biohacking. I flew to Miami to my friend, Dr. D, who owns Biohacks.
Yeah.
And I said, dude, I've heard this stuff online about biohacking. I don't know much about it. I'm 46 years old right now. Have you ever checked your test levels and all that?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I'm on tier 2.
Okay,
Yeah.
tier. Well, you know, I had never done it. My testosterone levels were in the, very, very, very low 200s.
Wow.
And it was just like, okay. And he's like explaining and teaching me how testosterone works and where it should be and where I was in my 20s and where I am in my 40s. And I'm like, oh shit, okay, well, let's fix that. And then he's like, here's all these peptides you can start taking for all these different things. And I'm like, okay, learning more about that. And he's like, your blood work shows that you're deficient in all these vitamins and minerals. So let's start taking that. And, I started seeing people ice bath and stuff. I'm like, all right, I'm going to try an ice bath. And now I'm addicted. I do it every single day. I just started paying attention to my health, started going to the gym every single day, twice a day. My friend Andy Frisella owns a company called First Form. They're one of the largest nutrition companies in the world. Probably one of my favorite entrepreneurs ever. He's got a great podcast too. And I flew out to St. Louis and I was hanging out with Andy and we were talking, and he has this program called 75 Hard.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I was like, and he helped me kick it off, and I did 75 Hard for the first time. I've now done it like 7 or 8 times.
Oh wow.
But it was more of a habit builder. It's not really a fitness program. It's a mindset builder.
Yeah.
It's, can you have discipline in your health for 75 days strong? Give up alcohol, give up sweets, drink a gallon of water, take a picture every single day of your body, read 10 pages of a book, work out 2 times a day, 45 minutes each time, once indoors, once outdoors, and do it for 75 days without breaking character. I did it, and it was hard. Giving up alcohol, that was easy. Everything was easy. 2 workouts a day, easy. Giving up sweets, hardest thing I ever did. I have such a sweet tooth. I was like, oh my God, I'm dying for like a cookie. So stupid, but everybody has a different heart in that.
Yeah.
But getting through it, man, you have a lot of confidence. You're very proud of yourself. And I started to see my body shift. Around that same time, do you know most men can't do a single pull-up?
It doesn't surprise me.
Most men cannot do 1 pull-up.
Right.
That's unbelievable to me. I was one of those people.
Really?
Little noodle arms over here, can't get up, And so I'm like, I'm going to make a goal for myself that I'm going to start doing pull-ups. And they were assisted for a long time. And now there's probably in a week, I probably do 1,000 pull-ups a week.
Wow.
Yeah.
How many can you do unbroken?
I'm not really a big, because I'm 207 pounds right now. I'm trying to get to 220.
Yeah.
So
That's a lot of weight
it
to
hurts
pull
my
up.
joints because I'm doing so many of them.
Yeah.
But if I was fresh, clean, and I
Yeah.
went in there, I could probably do 20, 25 in
That's
a
a
row,
lot.
which is a lot
Yeah, for a 200-pound guy,
for a big
yeah.
boy.
Yeah.
But I more just do 10 sets of 10 every day of the week, or every other day I'm doing 10 sets of 10. So I'm trying to do 100 at a time. That was my goal for the last few months. Now I'm up to 150 at a time, and I'm trying to get it up.
Did you ever hear that book, Living with a Seal?
Yeah. Yeah, Jesse Itzler.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What a legend that guy is.
Yeah, really interesting
Yeah.
character. That book was funny. After Goggins lived with him for a month, he said he didn't work out for like 3 months. He didn't work out for 3 months or something after, right? I think
Yeah. Yeah. I've been lucky enough to speak on some stages with Goggins.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was hanging out backstage and we were talking, and God, that guy's a savage.
He is.
And I'm a runner and I love to run. And we were talking, and it's like, what time do I go running? I'm like, I get up at like 4:45. He's like, 4:45. Like, he's like laughing at me, And I'm like, the fuck? 4:45 is pretty early, like nobody else is up. And he's like, nah, man, 1, 2 in the morning, get out there, start running down the street, man. And as you're running, man, and you're passing those cars and the lights are off, and this is how he's talking to you. The lights are off and it's all dark out there, and you're looking inside the houses and they're fucking dark in the houses. And as I'm running down the street, I'm just thinking to myself, I'm stealing these motherfuckers' souls. And I'm like looking at it, I'm like, stealing souls? I'm like, shit, I need to steal some souls. Next day,
Well,
4 in the morning, then 3 in the morning running. And it's just like, you start pushing yourself. But
let me come back to that, because again, I keep coming back. You have the Alex Hormozis and the Jordan Petersons, and of course, someone like a David Goggins. And it sounds like you've been on both sides of it, where Andrew Tate, where they're like they're relentless, or, Grant Cardone, they're like, to me, I have no interest in working 80 hours a week. You know
Mm,
what I'm saying? Like, I could. It's
yeah.
like, I was a Division I college wrestler. Like, I know how to work really hard. With that being said, that's not the life. I just know too many people, and maybe it's because they told me I was dying when I was 24, but it's like I just know too many people that have a shit ton of money that are miserable.
Yeah.
And so yes, I make a good living, I live a nice lifestyle, but if that's all I had, like, it just wouldn't be enough. And I just
As
feel
long as
like
you're happy,
sometimes,
as long as you're happy, that's all that matters. Are you
yeah,
happy?
well, I absolutely
Yeah,
am.
that's all that matters. The money is a milestone, all that, but like to finish the thought, I'm now making health a priority,
Right,
right? And I'm starting to like get results that which gains confidence. And it's like
right.
a self-fulfilling cycle. You're like, okay, I could do 75 days strong. I could do 10 pull-ups. I can hit the gym consistently twice, go one, maybe go for a morning walk and then a little bit of time at the gym. And by the way, guys, this is what I meant by take care of yourself first and then help the others around you. If you're so financially broke and you're stressed and you can't even pay your bills, you don't have time to go to the fucking gym. You don't have time to do anything. You just need to get yourself up at David Goggins hours and get an extra day of work in
Right.
because you need to solve that problem first so you can free yourself up so you
Mm.
can take care of your health. And you can, now I'm not saying at the expense of, well, you are going to be at the expense of your health for a little while. I'm not saying forever, but you got to sacrifice in order to get it going. But hopefully you're in the right vehicle that allows you to get it going,
Mm.
which is most people's problem. They're just in the wrong vehicle, right? It's like, I don't care how much you love to teach guitar. You're never getting rich teaching guitar unless you can
Right.
do it at scale. And so sometimes you got to give up your things you love to do the thing that you should be doing that makes the most money. But once you take care of that, you can't, I don't work at all before 10:30.
Mm.
Every single day of the week, you will see me at the gym from probably 8 in the morning till 10:30, and I'm at the gym.
Mm.
Now I'm networking and schmoozing
Yeah,
because I go
yeah,
to Lifetime Fitness and I know there's a lot of real
yeah,
estate people there and stuff.
yeah.
But it's my meditation time. It's my personal time. It's like I refuse to take a meeting or a phone call before that.
Mm.
So you can construct a life where it's like
Sure.
you can compartmentalize and work the time you want. And when I work really hard. But I also had to build a muscle in other areas other than the gym, right? When I'm going through a divorce, I made a decision in that moment as my ex is crying and my kids are crying. And it's the worst feeling in the world because as a man, you feel like you're letting everybody down.
Mm.
That I'm going to be the world's greatest dad and the world's greatest ex-husband. If there was a fucking Super Bowl trophy of being an ex-husband, I'm going to earn it.
Right.
And it's all just focus and discipline, right? So I'm like, okay, what would the world's greatest ex-husband look and act like, right? So right away, I'm like, what's your biggest fears? How do I solve those? What if there was an arrangement where you weren't scared any longer?
Mm.
Let me cut the check. Let me figure out whatever I got to do to solve that problem. How do I show up for you more?
Mm.
And I wanted my daughter and my son to see God. He is treating mom so freaking good in some of the most difficult times,
Mm.
and continue to treat her good. She's now remarried,
Mm.
and I love her new husband, and I'm the most supportive ex-husband on the planet,
Right.
and that's just because I'm trying to set a standard of being the greatest. And at the same time, I had to lean in on my kids. And at the same time, I had to lean on spiritual muscle. So I started going to church. I didn't know how to pray.
Mm.
I read one page of the Bible, I fall asleep.
Right.
It's like, and it's overwhelming and scary. So I'm like, and it's hypocritical. And I'm like, oh, this is just a big money thing,
Yeah.
like who, what, but if you just show up in that environment and start building that muscle and just consistently show up.
Mm.
And then I started praying, and then I started reading the Bible, and I started getting to know people at church, and then I started going to Bible study. Like, it's like it just kind of builds and stacks. I'm still not a great Christian, but I'm in the game at
Right.
least now. I'm in the game,
Right.
and I'm trying to build a relationship with my creator. Because if you think about your life, if you want to be in alignment and be the best version of you, you have to get your intimacy circles dialed in. Intimacy circles are like a dartboard, right? And at the center of that dartboard has to be you and your creator. Because if it's just you and you are the God, then there's nothing else, right? You're in control of everything and it's all your fault, and that's that. And that's how I was operating for a long time. And when things got out of control And more I tried to control it, the worse things got.
Right.
And so I had to let go and surrender to something bigger than me and say, okay, if you're real and you don't make mistakes and you're not playing defense, then this has a purpose, right? There's lessons to be learned in this failure of my marriage. There's lessons to be learned in the death of my mom and my businesses or failures or whatever. And so you have to get that dialed in. And then as you go out from the dartboard, it's like, then it's you and your significant other. Then it's your kids. It's not your kids first and then it's like you and your creator, then you and your significant other. That has to be the strongest foundational two relationships you got. And then everything else will start working out. It's like, then your kids, then your family, and then your best friends, then your friend. And then as you go further out, I had them all mixed up. I was triaging. I was just putting whoever needed it the most in the center of my world and fucking up everything else.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. And that's a therapy thing that they work with you. And I've done every type of therapy. That was the other thing. I'll end with this on this little rant. In order for me to connect spiritually, health-wise, in my relationships, all this stuff, first I had to take care of myself. So it was a perfect moment for me to go to therapy and do the one thing I neglected to do my entire childhood. And that's go back upstream and heal little Cody. Because little Cody's carrying around a subconscious programming based on moving around 10, 12 times before I'm 10 years old and losing friendships and being a tiny little guy I didn't grow until I was in the Navy. I grew 6.5 inches when I joined the military. Wow. So here I am, not able to play sports because I was too little and I would get ran over. Immature, mentally very mature, but also very immature. Losing friendships like crazy, getting bullied, picked on all the time, beat up. I've been in 150 fights, lost all of them, because I got a smart mouth,
right.
And I would say something stupid and some kid would smack me. And, it was just like, I always felt so out of control as a kid. My mom and dad split up maybe like 3 or 4 times growing up, and then they would get back together. So, next thing you know, there's other people involved in their relationship, and my mom was bisexual, and I never knew that until I walked in on her in the kitchen. So as a kids, we have all this shit we carry, and then you wonder why you lose your freaking mind when someone cuts you off in traffic, and you don't even realize like all this programming just comes out of you, and all of a sudden you become a psychopath in traffic, and you're like, what the hell was that? Where'd that come from? Why can't I control myself? And that's because you never went upstream and dealt with it. And so I went to this really great place in Scottsdale, Arizona called Psychological Counseling Services. I paid $10,000 and I went to a week-long intensive.
Wow.
And it's basically an addiction clinic. People were in there for all kinds of things, food, porn, whatever. I was in there for like overworking, like like just being a hot mess everywhere in my life. And horse therapy, one-on-one, acting therapy, EMDR, somatic release breath work, all these great modalities, very experiential. And you come out of that, you build a trauma egg, you do intimacy circles, you do all this stuff, but you address a lot. And an EMDR, if you've never done it, I highly recommend it to anybody listening. It's like a rapid eye movement reprogramming, but it's experiential. They go upstream and let's say my mom dying. If we would have talked about my mom dying before I did my therapy, I'd cry. I couldn't even control it. I'd just be like snot bubbles and everything.
Right.
I could talk about it forever now because they've taken that trauma from a 10 to a 0. It's like, I don't remember my mom dying. I don't from the negative. I think about her life and all the beautiful things that I loved about her. And we were able to reprogram that through EMDR. It was a long experience, very intense. Took me a little over a year to do it, but one of the best things I ever did.
Wow.
And I say all that to say this. If you want to make more money, if you want to be a more powerful entrepreneur and impact the people around you more and be able to serve more, go do the therapy. Because I guarantee you as a man, you are not in your full power right at this moment if you haven't done it.
Yeah.
You can't be.
I haven't done EMDR, but I've been in therapy for most of my adult life. I find it, to me, it's like, I know how to work out, but I still work out better with a personal trainer. Therapist to me is something similar to that, which is I'm focused on my mental and emotional well-being. I'm focused on trying to move myself forward in that way. I just think it's always useful to focus your energy.
Yeah. And I wish I would have done it 20 years earlier.
Right.
Hmm.
How do you feel about relationships now? I mean, it sounds like you're not that far out of your marriage. Are you, dating again? Especially as a very successful guy too. That's challenging. It's a
Yeah.
very kind of a target on your back too, in a lot of ways, especially in this day and age. Maybe the pendulum's swinging back a little bit the other way now, but how do you think about that?
Yeah. So when I was getting out of my marriage and I was now separated, I was living on my own, and the divorce hadn't happened yet, but we were legally separated. And when you're getting a divorce, when you have a lot of assets, it takes a while to like process through all of it
Yeah.
and stuff. And I'm very lucky. We were able to do an entire divorce with just mediators, no issues.
Wow.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
we have a great
I'm
relationship now.
jealous.
Well, it started from the I'm going to be the world's greatest ex-husband
Yeah.
thought. And to me, that means you can have it all.
Mm,
I don't give a shit about any of this other than I'm going to win that trophy.
mm.
Like that's how obsessed I
Wow.
was with it. I was like, I don't care about you want the companies? I know you don't want the companies.
Right.
She just wanted safety and
Yeah.
security and to know that she's being treated more than fairly. Or fairly, I treated her more than fairly. I got some great advice from Dean Graciosi, who's Tony Robbins' business partner and mastermind.com, good personal friend of mine, one of the biggest. I mean, his brands and companies have done billions.
Mm.
He called me up one day and he said, he checked in on me. He said, how you doing? I said, I'm rough. It's rough, but I'm surviving. He said, let me give you some advice, Sperber. He said, you're the 1% of the 1%ers. You're good looking. You're healthy. You got a lot of money. The world is your oyster right now. You're a great communicator. Everything's going well for you. You're in the top bracket of what every woman would want, right? You have to make a choice at this moment because you can either go out in Scottsdale, Arizona and go slut around and have a
Right.
good time and hook up with tons of different chicks and do all that. And you're going to maybe you do that real fast, like get it out of your system. But just know that every time you give away your value like that, you are pushing away the potential of a high valued woman showing up in your life. So make the call of what you want to do. Do you want to give away your value or do you want to protect it?
Mm.
And I was like, fuck you, dude. I'm trying to get laid over here. Like, I'm finally free, 18 years of being in a relationship. I'm single and you're going to rain on my parade like that?
Right.
Like, but he was right.
Yeah.
He was so right. I woke up the next day and I was like, all right, challenge accepted. Let me see what happens. And so I was very protective of dating.
Mm.
And I didn't really do anything for about 10 months. And then I started, slowly dating. And but I'm not out there,
Yeah.
going crazy.
Mm.
I was in a relationship for about a year with a Russian lady. It ended about 4 months ago.
Mm.
But yeah,
Mm.
now I'm single and
Yeah.
just focused. But it is challenging. You do got to kind of navigate, like, do they like me for me?
Yeah.
I'm not on dating sites or anything like that. So
Yeah.
I think the good thing I don't have a problem getting laid.
Right.
That's easy.
Yeah.
It's more just like, what do I want? And right now I'm really enjoying my freedom.
Mm.
Yeah.
If I go back, I had a period of, sort of sowing my oats. If I go back, I think I would have not done that, in hindsight.
Yeah. Why is that?
It was a distraction, I've never had any real addictions. I never drank a drop of alcohol till I was 35 when I got divorced, ironically.
Mm.
Because I helped my mom detox from alcohol when I was 9. I was freaked out it might be genetic, so I just never touched a drop of alcohol. Then when I got divorced and started dating, if I didn't order a drink, they assumed I was an alcoholic. So I started to drink to prove I wasn't an alcoholic, ironically. And but anyway, yeah. So it ended up being a distraction in the same way that alcohol would be a distraction, is how I felt about it. When I look back in hindsight, I'm remarried now to a woman who's fantastic, and
You're nailing the second go around.
oh yeah, no, I definitely. I mean, I
good.
hit the absolute lottery. Yeah, just I've never had someone treat me better.
Mm.
Take care of me, because I'm a caretaker. So it's like I'm just not used to anyone taking care of me. So
That's a beautiful thing.
it's a beautiful thing, and
Yeah.
it took a little while to get used to, actually. So because I just wasn't used to it. So, but
Now, is that her love language? Like, that's your love language, her love, like, you guys figured that out, like, where she just kinda got it, or you just
it's
got
funny.
lucky?
The journey was. In fact, we're going to do a podcast together because I think it's going to be fascinating. So she's when we met, she was 23 and I was 50.
Okay, big age
She's a
difference. So
first gen,
the Russian I was dating
right?
was 28, and I
Okay,
was 45
yeah.
when I met
So yeah, I
her.
was. So my daughter is way closer to her age than my girlfriend is to mine, um, and they're actually super close. Thank God, thank God
Yeah.
they get along great. But so she was 23 and she'd never been in a relationship before. She'd had hookups, but she'd never been in a relationship. I was the first. She's first generation Afghan.
Okay.
Um, which again, if I were going to give advice, right, it's like generating, someone who's, again, I think more traditional gender roles tend to generally work better, especially for guys that are
Oh, I
more
thought that's what I
successful.
was getting. That's not what I got. I got chewed up and spit out by a Russian.
Yeah, no, you got to be, but the fact that I was the first person that ever met her family. Now it because she had never been in a relationship before, she had to learn how to communicate better in a relationship and so forth. But I would say after about a year and a half in the relationship, and she learned how to be in a relationship, best partner I could even like. I literally almost constructed the perfect partner because
That's beautiful.
yeah, and again, it's just like I joke. Most guys, I'll be like, I'll be home at 7, and it's like, oh, it's 9, right? And instead of busting my balls like any every girl I've ever dated,
Yeah.
including my ex-wife, she'd be like, "So sorry you're having to work late. Do you want me to deliver some food? Have Uber Eats sent to you? Like, what would you like?" Bust my balls,
That's beautiful.
zero about anything ever. And for a while, she when I met her, I didn't say it to be mean, I swear, but I said, "Oh, she was thin and attractive." I said, "Oh, well, you're skinny fat," because she'd never been to a gym in her life,
Mm.
right? Little did I know, she barely slept for the next 2 days because I said that, and then now she's like she became a personal trainer and, meal prep, and she
You
started.
activated her
I
just
did,
to
I
prove
didn't
you
mean
wrong.
to. I
Yeah.
swear I didn't mean to, but, now we have that in common, which is
Note
great.
to self, that 99% of the time that's gonna backfire, and you're gonna get your ass kicked, but that worked for you.
It happened too.
Yeah.
I got lucky. But no, but it
But
was
that's more attractive. Somebody who's taking care of themselves like that is
no.
more attractive.
Absolutely, because
Yeah.
eventually you're not 23, you're 33 and then
Yeah.
43 and
Here's how here's how I view relationships now. When I'm in a relationship from this day forward, I'm going to pretend that every single day that I'm in that relationship, that every single thing about that relation on my side of my day is being recorded. This is how I'm visualizing
hmm,
my approach to the perfect relationship. I'm going to show up every single day. I'm going to play like it's the Super Bowl, right? What if every thought, private thought, every email, every DM, every conversation you have with your boys, your homies, your kids, anything was captured on tape? And at the end of every single day, your woman got to watch that recording. Would she be more in love with you and more proud of you? You win the day. If she's more pulled away from you or scratching her head or why would you talk about me this way or talk about things that way or look, why are you looking at things this way? If she's not, then you lost. And that's literally how I think about every single day if I'm in a relationship.
believe it or not, it's gonna sound ridiculous, but that is the relationship I have. It's the only person I've ever been with where she could look at my phone, she could look at
Yeah.
anything, any email, any DM, any text message, zero secrets from each other about literally anything, even things that I might be embarrassed to tell someone else, I'm not embarrassed to tell
Yeah.
her and vice versa.
Yeah, good.
Not almost 9 years together, never uttered an unkind word to each other.
Alignment.
What's that? Yeah, alignment.
Alignment.
Yeah,
You guys are
like
in
near
alignment.
near near
Yeah.
perfect alignment,
Yeah. That's beautiful.
and thank God she gets along with my daughter. Thank God,
Yeah.
because that
That's
would be a
good.
nightmare if they didn't.
N-
So
No more kids?
no, we talked. We talked about it. I mean, look, I'm 58, right?
Yeah.
And so we even talked about it as recently as the end of last year because she's 32 now, and I said, look, um, because I know what it's like to be a dad. You have 2
Mhm.
kids yourself, and there's no getting around the fact that if you because I think you're exactly right. You have to make your relationship at the center, with your romantic partner.
Yeah.
And if you do that really well, then you can also be the kind of parent your kids need. But your relationship will not have the same focus. It's just, especially in those first 4 or 5 years you have a kid. It's just, I think it's impossible. It can still be amazing in other
Yeah. It's
ways,
tough.
but it shifts,
Oh yeah.
it's no longer about being a couple. And so, we had, it was funny. My first mother-in-law hated my guts. My second mother-in-law, who, by the way, I'm only like 6 years younger than, right,
Yeah.
loves me.
Yeah.
And she's like, don't fuck it up and have kids. Is what she's telling her daughter, my wife.
That's good.
And so we talked about it and so on. And now we're negotiating over a dog.
All
We'll
right. There you
see how
go.
that goes. But I told her, I said, look, if you really tell me that you don't think your life would be complete without having a child, I'll do it. And I'll do it wholeheartedly. Like, I won't
Yeah.
say, oh, you shouldn't have talked me into it. Like, I'll never say that ever. Like, I'll get fully
Yeah.
behind it. And yeah, I'll be fucking 80 when the kid goes to college or whatever, but I'll get behind it. And she said she decided against it.
Okay.
So,
There you go. Well, a
but
dog it is.
yeah,
There
well,
you go.
we'll see.
That's
Well, the
tough.
new thing is, I said, well, if your mom moves to Miami, uh, then you can get a dog. So, because her mom lives in Savannah at the moment. Because I'm like,
Do you
it's like,
want a dog?
what's that?
Do you want a dog?
I had so
Because
in
you
a
have an
mo-
out, right? You just got to convince your mom not to move to Miami
well, so I
or her mom, some mom.
no, I love her mom. Like, I love her mom to move to Miami. So I just want someone that she trusts and feels comfortable with to be able to watch the dog if we're traveling
Ah,
and stuff
got
like
it.
that. Was more the concept. I had two in a moment of weakness. I got two French bulldogs when my daughter was in middle school, or no, maybe grammar school. Yeah, when she would have been 10, so whatever that school that is, and no, 8. And I was like, and the dog, there was a boy and a girl, and the boy was like my favorite just bundle of love in the world, and he died on my birthday. And I'm just like
Mm,
traumatized. Maybe I need to do that therapy to like untraumatize myself
yeah.
because whenever I think of dogs, I think of coming home to my dog dead on my birthday.
Jeez.
It was
Yeah.
heartbreaking.
Yeah. You need to process through that for
I
sure.
need to process it. I try not to think about it too much. So, Cody, I can't thank you enough for doing this. This has been absolutely wonderful. I know my listeners are going to get so many pearls from this. Um, Not that you need it, but if there's anything you want to talk about, what you're doing, and where people can find you.
Yeah.
I
No,
already have like three
look,
or four
uh,
people in the real estate space. I'm like, they're gonna have to take this guy's course.
yeah. Well, no, I don't even want to sell course. I don't even care if anybody listening never buys a course. Like, I got tons of very affordable training out there. Just go to cleverinvestor.com or, reach out to us on social media. We're at Clever Investor on all social channels. But no, that's just one of my companies. I'm probably more excited about two other things. I have a $50 million equity fund that we're raising capital for to continue to buy more commercial real estate. I got about $170 million worth of development projects that I'm doing right now. We didn't even talk about any of that. And so, if you're an accredited investor and you have lazy capital laying around, maybe in your 401k or something like that, we can move it over and self-direct it and get it working for you. We pay 10, 12, 14% on your money, plus you get a tax benefit. And you can go to clevercapitalfund.com to learn more about that. But you got to be an accredited investor,
Mhm.
which means that you make, I think it's over $250,000 a year for 2 consecutive years in a row, and with an expectation of doing that again, or have $1 million worth of net worth, not including your primary residence. So if you
Right.
can qualify for being accredited, we can put some money to work on great AAA rated type commercial real estate.
Hmm.
And then the other thing that's my new challenge is scaling a brand new company called Floor Daddy. And right now we're only in Arizona, but if you're in Arizona and you need flooring,
Mm.
we'll cut you the greatest deal ever. And we're scaling like crazy right now. That's a whole different animal with a whole different set of challenges. Like, I knew nothing 9 months ago about the flooring space.
Hmm.
I built a lot of houses. I've installed a lot of floors, but to run a flooring business, and we bring our store to your door. So our model is very unique, where our value proposition is like, hey, don't go to some, floor and decor type of business where you have to walk around and hopefully get help by somebody. We'll send a design consultant to you with the flooring in a van
Hmm.
and put it right in your house, and then use AI technology to show you what it's going to look like once it's fully installed.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool.
That's very clever.
And we're going to hit $1 million in flooring sales this month in our 8th month in business. So we're just
Wow.
launching like crazy. And I have a great business partner in that. His name's Tommy Mello. He is the founder of A1 Garage Doors, and he got a $1 billion evaluation, put hundreds of millions of dollars in his pocket.
Hmm.
They're, um, Probably is going to have a second exit here soon,
Nice.
and great mentorship for me to kind of coach me in the home services space.
Mm.
Building a great team, and we got a good game plan. My goal for this company is scale it for 5 years and sell it for 350 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, sounds
So
like
wish
you're
me
well on
luck
your way.
and buy floors from Floor Daddy.
Absolutely. Hey, Cody, thanks again. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.